Hello and welcome, my friends. We are now going to be reacting and talking about the quarterfinals. Obviously, there is a bit of an issue. Down one Kia, just like Hunger Life last year, just like DRX the year before, right? Yeah, they let us down. LCK teams are supposed to get first place. What did they do? Second place. Now what's going to happen? We have an LCK team in second place with the LPL team in the first place. So we're all going to see how this is going to happen. We're going to have LPL versus LPL and LCK versus LCK. That's just the most likely event. I mean, it's guaranteed. It's guaranteed. Down one Kia can't face JDG. That means they have to face another LCK team. The fuck is this? Like, this is just stupid. Also, T1, Gen G, or JDG is going to get a freebie because one of them has to play Rogue. I mean, maybe Rogue can step it up, right? I mean, it wasn't the best level of play, but I mean, at least was gameplay what they delivered in week 1. So, like, maybe we get a 3-1 or something. But I mean, man, this Worlds format is just so cringe. Like, we can get fucking T1 versus down one, which is last year's semifinals. Like what? Like, we could get, yeah, we can get like down one Gen G. Like, come on, man, I don't want to see this. I mean, DRX down one. I mean, that's a bit closer, but I think it's also a bit. I don't know, man. I mean, at some point, of course, LCK and LCK is going to meet each other and they're going to fight, and only one team can advance, and that makes sense. There can only be 2 LCK teams in the final. If we start with 4, and if LCK is just crushing everyone, obviously they can't, like, they have to play each other at some point. But I mean, it's just all down one's fault, man. Down one. Why would you fucking lose that tiebreaker game? Get good, man. Get good. Like, look at how Gen G handled things, man. Just walked into that, slammed their, like, I don't know inches, like, dropped their 10-inch, 25-inch long jong onto their faces and just swept RNG off the stage. Wait, RNG obviously wasn't on stage. And I thought about the entire, like, while we're waiting here for the draw, maybe I'm going to skip forward in a bit, but while we're waiting, I thought about the comment I made about RNG obviously having some advantage playing from their room, their isolation room. And sure, that in itself, it's a massive advantage, right? With how bad playing on stage is due to Riot Game fucking up, and of course with a live audience right into your face, obviously that's going to be like a huge boost. But I mean, I will kind of have to admit, they still had COVID, right? They were still sick, which, I mean, just don't get sick, I guess, KW, but I mean, that's still also bad, right? So on one hand, RNG has like insane advantages, depending on how sick they are. I mean, you can have, like, at this point right now, this far into the pandemic, you can have COVID and not really feel too much of it, which, like, let's hope that's the case, man. We don't wish any pain and suffering. It's hopefully absolutely clear here. But you can't just have COVID and just being chill in that isolation room with better environment to play. But looking at some of the player footage that I saw online and looking back while editing the video, I mean, they weren't having the best of times, so they looked fairly ill at points. So it's just really sad that we have sick players. I mean, maybe then it's kind of even with sick players having a better environment to play, but I don't know, man. Like, maybe they could have just, like, put into isolation during Worlds, right? Obviously, it's a bit hard if you're running around in where were they? In New York and in Mexico City. Obviously, yeah, I mean, you could lock them into their rooms, just don't meet anyone, and then you don't get COVID. I mean, it doesn't drop from the sky. But yeah, anyway, let's leave all this negative stuff away. Let's get to the next negative thing. that we're going to see. There's also ruling, obviously, that the same teams can't be on the same side of the bracket. So we have obviously the upper side and the bottom side. So if T1 is drawn into like the first spot here, immediately the most upper thing here, then it means that EDG is going to be at the bottom. So this is also going to force us into some situations here and there, which is going to make it more likely to have LCK semifinals, I'd say. But let's just see and let's just mold. I think ST1, we're looking for a freebie. We get, hopefully, did they spell it correctly this time? I can't read it. Anyway, we get JDG here. Hopefully this time they spelled it correctly. Couldn't really catch it there. But JDG's, what are they doing? Show a graphic, hey! Okay, not going to bother, okay. So JDG is going to be in the upper bracket, as is T1. So we're not getting T1 versus Down1, we're getting T1 versus Rogue, or T1 versus Rogue, or T1 versus, let me think, quick thinking, T1 versus Rogue, or T1 versus RNG. Oh my god. T1 versus Rogue, or T1 versus RNG. Gen.G versus EDG, or quick thinking. Gen.G versus EDG, or Down1. So Gen.G versus EDG or Down1. T1 versus man, I'm not, it's too much. It's too much, it's too late. So we're going to get DRX versus Gen.G, and we're going to get T1 versus JDG. Hello? Put it in? Right, games? Okay, yes. So we're going to see it at the end. I don't have to pause, but due to how the rules work, instead, I mean, maybe they were changed, but Down1 has to go into the bottom, and EDG has to go into the bottom due to T1 and JDG, and then also obviously the reverses to Rogue and RNG have to be at the top side. So RNG, or not Rogue. So yeah, we get Gen.G versus Down1 Kia. Interesting. Gen.G versus Down1 Kia. I mean, it's going to be a bit more one-sided. I mean, DRX versus Down1 Kia would have been at least somewhat interesting. And no. Okay, JDG gets a free pass. JDG meets Rogue, and yeah, I mean. Great, so JDG gets a freebie, and T1 so now everything is confirmed. JDG versus Rogue, T1 versus RNG, Gen.G versus Down1, and then lastly DRX versus EDG. I don't know why we're drawing balls, but it doesn't matter anyway. So yeah, that's what it is. So did I mistake anything? Nope. I was absolutely correct. Wow, it's good to be me. So yeah, JDG versus Rogue. Easy clap. JDG 3-0. T1 versus RNG. Easy clap 3-0 T1. Gen.G versus Down1 Kia. Easy clap 3-0 Gen.G. DRX versus EDG though. I think that could be interesting. That could be really interesting. I think if DRX is faltering back to like spring performance, then EDG has a good time there. But if it's current DRX, I mean, maybe there's actually a good chance they're actually up to par, and EDG has been faltering somewhat. So okay, they're just going to go away from this screen. Okay, screw you. So yeah, obviously going to go into the pick'ems later to adjust that. But yeah, this is going to be very boring quarterfinals. I mean, I don't know if boring is the right word, right? If T1 is sleeping, like maybe RNG can get a game. Hopefully RNG can cure themselves and play on stage. Oh my god, no, please, no, they're not going to be cured. They're just going to chill and fuck. Oh, come on, man. Anyway. So I think the first match, we don't have to talk about that. Like Rogue is literally like an imposter among us. They probably, like in a world where Riot Games has a working game, Rogue isn't even here. So that's that. So JDG is just like freebie, 3-0. T1 versus RNG, I mean, maybe RNG can lose like some hacks and get advantages again. Maybe T1 forgets how to draft on red side, and I mean, T1 should easily win this, but like maybe some bullshit happens. I mean, yeah. I mean, RNG, I mean, they had some really nice games today, but overall it wasn't too convincing. I mean, hey, they weren't even drafting Kai'Sa, so that's something. I mean, hey, I don't know. Gen.G down 1 Kia, I mean, yeah, it's not the same down 1. They don't even know where their strengths are. They can't itemize. They're literally like inting themselves in draft in every aspect of the game nearly. They have talented players, but not as talented as Gen.G, that's for sure. And yeah, they don't even know the basics. I mean, that's maybe a bit harsh, but yeah, Gen.G should easily win this. I think this is not on the same level as JDG Rogue, but still pretty straightforward. DRX, EDG, and T1 RNG should be the only like interesting games or close games, I'd say, because like T1, I mean, I don't want to jinx it. So I'm not going to say T1 is easy clapping, but T1 obviously is the heavy favorite into this. But RNG, I mean, they can make games rather spicy, and I mean T1 is still fairly young, so maybe I don't know. Now there's not going to be anything. Don't dope T1. Let's go. And yeah, DRX EDG, I think that's the only interesting game. If we're like not interesting, but the only closed game, right? Other games can be interesting because like fluctuation and like strategies and wild gameplay and whatnot, or like hacking. But DRX EDG, that should be the only interesting one due to how close these teams are and level of play, I would assume. And yeah, if we assume like that's going to go further down the line, obviously it depends on what form they show into the quarterfinals. But JDG versus T1, Gen.G versus I say DRX. I think DRX is the favorite. Not because they're first seed, right? Not because they're LCK, but I think their form has just been better. EDG had some good moments, but some of their wins were also like a bit tedious. So that's that. And then I mean Gen.G, DRX, T1, JDG. T1 JDG is that's just illegal. It's the same. It's not the same as the Dam1 T1, which was actually the finals. I still am thinking that. Don't at me, man. So T1 JDG is going to be incredibly fun. I think T1 is like slightly favored there because that's just how these teams actually match against each other. JDG is like a more like JDG is like actually like some form of LCK team, I'd say, with like controlled, like a controlled dominant but controlled mid game, and then going for very decisive, very strong team fighting, and that's how they usually win. They like just like suffocate the enemy teams by themselves, or like let the enemy teams strangle out themselves. I don't know how to really like phrase that, but that's not. I don't think that's really going to work against T1. It's not that like I say T1's just better in every regard, but it's not that T1's late game fighting is just bad, or like T1 like has bad macro, where like other LPL teams, especially like TES, which is like the JDG like rival of some sort, is like faltering often. I think T1's early and mid game is just really good if they draft towards that. So I think T1 is favored into this matchup, but we'll have to see how the quarterfinals performance is. And then Gen.G DRX, I don't think we have to talk much about that. Gen.G EDG, I mean, again, depends on what level of play both teams show in the quarters, but if Gen.G 3-0, if DRX like 3-1, I think Gen.G is moving into this as a heavy favorite. And then T1 Gen.G, we get a rematch of the LCK finals, and obviously till that point we have seen 2 best of 5s, and that's obviously heavily like dependent on what level we saw there, so obviously that's always the catch, right? But yeah, T1 wins Worlds. What do you expect me to say? Like, what the fuck do you expect me to say? Like, every analysis goes out the window if it goes to T1. No, I mean, that's not entirely true, but I think, T1 has been like one of the absolute better teams in this group stage so far. Not gonna lie to you. Also considering their opponents, right? I mean, JDG, they played against, like, what? G2 and, like, EG? What? And, like, down one. obviously not like that wasn't our expectation, but down one absolutely was the weakest LCK team. So like that's who JDG like smashed. Not even really, besides that last game, but even that went to like 34 minutes. And like that's even strange how that happened. So I don't think JDG is like far and up and the best team by far. They're really controlled, really solid. They don't let like shit slip out, but they also lost a game against down one. So hey, but yeah, I think T1 is like it's not too far fetched to say T1 is like the best right now. I mean, week 2 is many teams stepped up, but I think I mean, hey, come, no one's going to believe. Anyway, let me know what your predictions are, mainly for the quarters, maybe also for semis and finals. I think T1 is going to have this in the bank, man. You agree with me, right? Anyway, see you soon with the quarterfinals, and yeah, it's going to be a big one. Till then, my friends.